A warm welcome to InBody's webinar on monitoring body composition for improving insulin sensitivity. My name is Ankita Ghaga. I am a clinical dietitian with InBody India. I will be taking you throughout this webinar today. Let's understand what is insulin sensitivity. Firstly, insulin is a hormone that helps in control of blood sugar level. Insulin sensitivity refers to the term wherein the body cells respond to this insulin. High insulin sensitivity means the body's uptake towards the glucose is quite on a higher side, thereby reducing the blood sugar levels, that is, blood glucose levels. There are certain lifestyle changes or dietary changes which can be done to improve this insulin sensitivity. As said, insulin is a hormone. For example, we can take insulin as a key. Unless and until this key unlocks the insulin receptor, glucose molecule will not be uptaken by the cell. Therefore, this key should be working. The working of this key is known as insulin sensitivity. If this key doesn't work, that means there is abnormal insulin sensitivity, which will lead to hyperinsulinemia, which will result in central obesity. So we can say if the insulin sensitivity is disturbed, that can lead to weight gain. Or else if person is physically inactive or the person is having the lower physical activity, the person is having higher chances to develop the condition known as central obesity, which we can also call as insulin resistance, which is developed because of this condition. If it continues for prolonged period, then the beta cells are hampered, resulting in diabetes mellitus. That is again a metabolic disorder. So therefore, it's very essential to have insulin sensitivity on a higher side. Insulin resistance usually cause hormonal imbalance, which is seen in PCOD, that is polycystic ovarian syndrome or disorder. It leads to estrogen dominance, resulting in lower thyroidism, which is hypothyroidism, leading to higher cholesterol, resulting in increased fat percentage, central obesity, and the cycle continues. There are various signs and symptoms how we can understand this insulin resistance. You can identify this insulin resistance by sudden weight gain or difficulty in losing weight. It can be affected by genetics, age, sedentary lifestyle, or by smoking. But there are classic signs like the person is having higher waist circumference, having a signs of metabolic syndrome. That means higher amount of visceral fat, more amount of person body fat, less amount of muscle mass, higher triglycerides, we can call it as dyslipidemias in this individual, higher blood pressure, higher blood sugar levels. The classic sign where you can understand this person is having insulin resistance is by looking for acanthosis nigricans, or we can call as dark patchy skin. If you can see on the neck or on the shoulder or on the arms or underarms, the skin has become velvety, it has become very dark. People say that it is because of lot of sweat, but it's not that. It's because of insulin resistance. There is darkening of the skin, which is a classic sign which you can see from your eyes, and you can understand the person is more prone for insulin resistance, and it is a high tide to work up over this. If not, then the person can progress towards the metabolic disorders such as diabetes, hypertension, and various types of cancers. As said, genetics and aging, along with ethnicity, play a major role in developing insulin sensitivity. But insulin resistance is having certain factors which is hampering the insulin sensitivity, such as increased body weight, too much of belly fat. As we all see, the Indian menu is having lot of items in the buffet. So there is overeating. There is lack of exercise because of the day-to-day lifestyle, the sedentary lifestyle which we are leading. Smoking, the lifestyle habits which have come up. Smoking in the tea breaks, in the office breaks, 10-minute breaks, smoking has come up into the picture, and the increased screen timing, because of which the sleep is hampered. So it's very essential to work up on this. because it is affecting the insulin sensitivity. There was a study which was done in the pediatric population where they found out the obese kids are having more amount of insulin resistance because of inadequate sleep. Imagine a child developing a insulin resistance and not working over it. It is leading to various metabolic disorders, type 2 diabetes coming in very early age. Isn't it a sign of alarm for us? In healthy adult population also, it was found out if the sleep is inadequate, then too the person is having higher chances of developing insulin resistance in multiple metabolic pathways. So it's not only in pediatric population but also in a normal healthy individuals. So it's very essential to have a proper 6 to 8 hours of sleep minimum. Belly fat, or else we can call it as a visceral fat which is surrounding your organs, and your person body fat. If it is on a higher side, there are more chances of individual developing insulin resistance, and it has proven in various researches. As we all know that exercises play a major role in improving insulin sensitivity. There was a study done which states the people who were exercising daily abruptly stopped exercising. It did decrease their insulin sensitivity, but it did not decrease their insulin response. Therefore, what we can conclude is person who is exercising for prolonged period can have a proper plateau of the insulin sensitivity. But to keep it sustained for prolonged period, exercise is must. At times if you are unable to do exercise for certain period, it's okay because insulin response will be there. Now question comes, how can we improve this insulin sensitivity, since we know that this insulin resistance is quite dangerous, rather it can lead to various lifestyle disorders. So how can we improve our insulin sensitivity? Firstly, have adequate sleep. Try and avoid the fatty foodstuffs, the food which are high in fats, food which are high in simple carbs. That will help you to improve insulin sensitivity. Losing weight is not only option to improve insulin sensitivity. Exercising regularly, not skimping on sleep, will help you to improve insulin sensitivity. University of New Mexico School of Medicine studied that overweight people who lost 10% of their body weight increased their insulin sensitivity by 80%. People who lost some amount of their body weight with the diet only increased at 38%, and people who didn't do anything there was never shift in their insulin sensitivity. In fact, there was a increase in insulin resistance. Therefore, it's very essential to follow diet and exercise and to have adequate sleep to improve insulin sensitivity. Since we are emphasizing so much on sleep, let's understand why sleep plays so much crucial role in weight management. A 6-year prospect study was done in Quebec, which states either a short sleeping hour or too much long sleeping hours has an increased risk on gaining body weight and body fat in adults. Therefore, it's very essential to have proper adequate sleep. When we talk about adequate sleep, the answer is 7 to 7.5 hours of sleep is essential. People who slept for 6 to 6.5 hours found it very difficult to lose weight. When they lost weight, the 58% was from their fat and 39% was from their muscles, which is not good. As compared to the people who slept for 7 to 7.5 hours, they lost 83% of their body weight, wherein most of it was fat and only 17% was a lean mass. So it's very essential to have adequate sleep timings to preserve that lean mass also. We spoke about sleep, we spoke about gaining of a fat mass, losing of a muscle mass, but let's understand what role exactly body composition play when it comes in monitoring of insulin resistance or insulin sensitivity. There was this research which was done which studied high muscle mass and low fat mass were highly significant for lowering insulin resistance. That means high muscles and low fat is highly correlated with insulin sensitivity. Therefore, it's very essential for us to make sure the patients increase their muscle mass and reduce their fat mass to improve their insulin sensitivity. Since we understood that muscle and fat monitoring is very essential, that's where body composition analysis plays a major role. But how to assess this body composition? There are various techniques such as DEXA scans, BIA technique, CT scans, MRI scans, and skin fold calipers, and many more. Talking about DEXA scans, that is dual energy X-ray absorptiometry. The advantage is it is a gold standard. It will give you exact 100% accurate readings. But the disadvantage is radiations. You cannot repeat the DEXA scans until 6 months. Therefore, it's quite not feasible. Again, the cost is very much high as compared to other techniques. The approximate costing goes from 3,000 rupees to 6,500 to 7,000 for one scanning. It's not feasible for the pocket size of all individuals. Second is BIA technique. We'll talk about it in much detail afterwards. Let's move ahead to CT scanning, that is computer tomography. It will give us accurate reading of visceral fat area. The disadvantage, again, it's time consuming and cost effectiveness is not there. But if we compare to DEXA scan, it is quite feasible for an individual to shell out some amount. Same goes with MRI scanning, that is magnetic resonance imaging. The advantage is it will give us accurate results, but the disadvantage is it is time consuming. You require the proper technician who can do this MRI scanning. Again, it is not that much cost effective. Skin fold caliper, it's quite cheap, but again we require a skilled professional to do that. There are lots of calculations involved. Skin fold caliper will only tell you about the body fat mass, but it won't tell you about the visceral fat levels and the muscle mass. Talking about BIA technology, that is bioelectrical impedance analysis. It can be done on day-to-day basis. You don't require as such professional qualified technicians to do this test, and it is very cost effective as compared to other techniques which are available. Let's understand BIA technology in more details.
The human body is composed of 4 main components: water, fat, protein, and minerals. Having a moderate amount of each component is important for a healthy life, and the BIA is considered as one of the most practical methods to know. BIA, bioelectrical impedance analysis. This method applies small currents throughout the body and measures the voltage to get a value called resistance, also known as impedance. The principle behind BIA is to flow electrical currents throughout the water in the body and to measure the amount of resistance the current encounters as it travels. Simply, more water will lead to lower impedance. For example, although the 2 men weigh the same, A has a higher amount of muscle mass than B. Since muscle cells hold more water than fat cells, electrical currents can more easily flow through A and will show a relatively smaller impedance value than B. And with this impedance data, the volume of a person's total body water is determined. So then, how did this technology come about? In 1969, an experiment was carried out to find the correlation between whole body impedance and volume of total body water. The study proved that the impedance index, height squared divided by impedance, had the highest correlation with total body water. This index is considered as the starting foundation of BIA devices. 10 years later, an American company commercialized the first impedance meter. This meter used a single frequency of 50 kHz and measured the body's impedance. Due to its simplicity and convenience, this BIA device sought attention from many researchers. However, as more researchers started using the device, they soon became skeptical of its accuracy. The device's claim to produce whole body results actually only tested the right half, and their use of a single low frequency inaccurately measured the whole body impedance. In order to compensate for its inaccuracy, scientists developed equations using empirical estimations such as age and gender. However, the equations were only specific to their test groups, and with so many additional factors to account for, no equations were applicable to all. After years of developing additional equations and incorporating empirical estimations, scholars concluded that technological improvements, rather than equations and estimations, were required to overcome its inaccuracy. BIA required technology that can provide segmental impedance and body water compartment measurements using a multi-frequency method. Then in 1996, the InBody, a body composition analyzer that took into account the limitations of conventional BIA devices, was introduced.
Once you do your BIA test, you will get such kind of result sheet. Since the result sheet is having so many parameters, we need to know which are the major parameters which we need to focus. First is muscle fat analysis, second is skeletal muscle index, third is percent body fat, fourth is visceral fat area, fifth is segmental lean analysis, and sixth is body composition history. Since we spoke so much about the lean mass and fat mass, we all know why muscle fat analysis is very important. There is also a terminology named as lipotoxicity, wherein these fat cells get deposited inside the muscles, which is also known as intramuscular fat or else intramuscular adipocytes, which is resulting in insulin resistance. Therefore, it's very essential to monitor your muscle fat analysis in order to reduce this intramuscular fat also, because you might have seen the individual is very sleek, very slim, the BMI is also on a very lower side, but when we do the BIA test, the fat mass is quite high, and then we wonder where is fat deposited in this individual. Now here we have our answer. It can be a lipotoxicity present in that individual, which can result in insulin resistance. We all know the importance of muscles, as they are the major consumers of available blood glucose. If this muscle levels drop down, the blood glucose, the free flowing glucose inside our blood will exceed, resulting in hyperglycemia. Therefore, we call as muscle tissue a expensive tissues present inside our body. To assess this muscle mass, it's very important to assess skeletal muscle mass along with skeletal muscle index to assess sarcopenia in that particular individual. Apart from monitoring skeletal muscle mass and skeletal muscle index, it's very essential to monitor segmental lean analysis, as researchers states the people who are having lower skeletal muscle mass, especially lower leg lean mass, are having higher chances of developing diabetes. Therefore, to prevent this metabolic disorder, it's very essential to monitor this. As we can see here in the table, the person is having lower leg lean mass, which is highly correlated. P-value is 0.01. That individual is having higher chances of developing type 2 diabetes. The question arises, Why leg muscles are given more importance? Because two-thirds of skeletal muscle mass is present in your thigh. If thigh muscles are reduced or if there is insufficient thigh muscles, then there are higher chances of insulin resistance because the glucose uptake will be reduced. Therefore, if the lower leg muscles are weak, there is muscle weakness resulting in reduced physical activity, which again leads to muscle loss. Muscle loss leads to insulin resistance. If there is insulin resistance, then again the person is having muscle weakness. So there are cascade of these reactions taking place. If we need to stop it somewhere, we need to start working from now. Researches also states lower skeletal muscle mass is highly correlated with insulin resistance in the individuals who are having lower leg lean mass. Hyperglycemia is associated with lower lean mass. If the person is having lower lean mass, their result sheet will appear in this manner where there won't be a balance between their upper body and lower body. Their lower body muscles will be on lower side. Monitoring skeletal muscle index is very essential because it will tell about the sarcopenia. And we all know if the muscles are less, that condition is known as sarcopenia. WHO has announced sarcopenia as a disorder and it plays a major role in insulin resistance. How to calculate skeletal muscle index? You need to divide appendicular lean mass, that is your right arm plus your left arm, right leg plus left leg divided by height in meters square. That's how you come to know your skeletal muscle index. Knowing the formula is essential, but what are the normal ranges? According to the researches, for the Asian population, normal SMI for males should be 7 kg per meter square and for females it should be 5.7 kg per meter square. It is very crucial to monitor skeletal muscle index because as per research, 10% increase in skeletal muscle index will reduce insulin resistance in diabetic by 11% and 12% in pre-diabetic. Therefore, it is very essential. We all know monitoring body composition is very essential, but it not only helps us to track the progress, it will help us to motivate the individual. It will help us to set the targets. For example, increase in 10% of skeletal muscle index in coming 3 months. It will help the individual to be compliant towards your diet, exercise and medication regime. It will also increase the follow-up of that individuals to see their progress, like whether my muscle mass is increasing or no, whether my fat mass is decreasing or no. So that will keep the motivation up in your patients. Along with monitoring body composition, it's very essential to improve the lifestyle of the individual. As we all know, if the insulin sensitivity is decreased, the person is having higher chances of developing diabetes. Therefore, through proper nutrition and exercise, it's very easy for us to maintain insulin sensitivity. Foods that we eat and when we eat has a bigger impact on insulin sensitivity. Muscle mass and fat mass, that is, higher muscle mass and lower fat mass, will play a key role in insulin sensitivity. To maximize the insulin sensitivity, the combination of resistance training and aerobic exercise will be beneficial. Talking about the food habits, try avoiding simple carbs and excessive fatty foods. Have small and frequent meals. Focus on your portion sizes. Opt for whole fruit rather than a fruit juice. It's very essential. Maximize your sleep time. The quality and quantity is what matters. Reduce down your stress as stress can also lead to insulin resistance. But if you control your stress, it will maximize your insulin sensitivity. Constant monitoring of your body composition will also help in monitoring your insulin sensitivity. Thank you for being with us in this webinar today. I hope you all liked it and found it informative. If you have got any doubts or any queries regarding this webinar, you can write it down on the chat box below, which you can see. If you have got any doubts regarding InBody devices, you can email us at inbody@india.com, or you can ping us on our social media handle, that is Instagram or Facebook @InBodyIndia. That's our social media handle. Thank you.